Hey there, listeners of the Bows Knows. I know it's been a while, but it is Teacher Appreciation Week this week, and I wanted to put together a podcast to say thank you to all the amazing educators out there helping the young people of the world grow into the people who they are meant to be and the best versions of themselves. And also a little bit of a PSA, I guess, if you will. Teachers, burnout is a thing, and no is a complete sentence. That's part of why season 3 of the Bows Knows has been kind of cut short. I got a big case of burnout. Lots of obligations that I said yes to, and unfortunately, this podcast was one of the things that I had to kind of let go and let take the back burner. So hopefully, season 4, once next year happens, I have finished a lot of my obligations. The big one being I will be completing my master's in educational leadership, so I won't be in grad school like 12 hours a week on top of my full-time job of teaching and raising my wonderful son, who is the face of the Bows Knows. So, long way to say, if you're still listening, thanks for staying subscribed to the podcast, and make sure you stick around for season 4. We're going to get back to get back to where I started, talking to students about what they are doing and some of the wonderful things there, and hopefully sprinkling in some more teacher podcast stuff through some of the contacts that I have made throughout the obligations that I had this year. So with all that, teachers, I hope you are having a great Teacher Appreciation Week and that you are a little bit rejuvenated, at least enough to survive till the end of the year and get to our well-deserved summer break. The rest of this episode is a podcast I recorded this fall, and it is with Jaime Suarez, the 2025 Florida Teacher of the Year. She came to my school, to QI Roberts Junior Senior High School, for a visit and showed her around campus, and then we sat down and recorded a podcast. It was supposed to be part of a whole series where I interviewed the 74 2025 Teachers of the Year, but as I said, that didn't pan out, but you'll probably hear from some of them in the future because they have become some good friends of mine and just great educators with lots to share. So I hope you enjoy the podcast with the 2025 Florida Teacher of the Year. Listening to Season 3 of The Bows Knows, the podcast where we will talk to students, teachers, staff, administrators, and more to share their stories from the world of education. I'm your host, Mr. Bows, and I hope you enjoy this podcast. Hey, everybody. So I have a very special guest live in studio with me. I have Florida's Christa McAuliffe Ambassador for Education and the 2025 Florida Teacher of the Year, Jaime Suarez.
Hi.
So we're going to talk a little bit about being Teacher of the Year, but we're actually going to spend a lot of our time talking about a teaching strategy called Building Thinking Classrooms. Yes. So welcome. Say hey.
It's nice to be here.
So kind of to start out with, my podcast always have a couple of intro questions, and I always love asking people what their favorite school story or tradition is.
So I am at Challenger K-8, and the best tradition that they have is that PTO will actually purchase for the 8th graders their high school shirt. So as the 8th graders are leaving our school and going on to high school, doesn't matter which high school you're going to, whether it's in our county or even if it's out of state, our PTO will find that high school shirt for you. And then on the last day of school, they spend the day just doing various activities together. And then the last thing they do is a clap out. And so where all the 8th graders just walk through the entire school and everybody gets to clap for them. That's just such an emotional time because a lot of these kids have only known that school. It's a K through 8 school. And so they get to walk through the halls and see, all their friends and then all the teachers that they've had along the way. So while they're wearing the shirt that represents where they're about to head off to, which for many of them, they're heading in different directions. So I love that tradition. I love that the PTO does that.
That's really cool. Love that. All right. So next question is if you could have a superpower, which one it be and why?
It would not be mind reading. Middle schoolers are honest enough sometimes with the things that they say. Do you feel like your high schoolers are?
Yeah.
So as honest as they are, I definitely don't want to know what they're actually thinking. I would say, I saw this on X-Men, the ability to replicate yourself. How cool would that be in the classroom if, you could have more of you doing various things, like your productivity would increase big time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of my kids would appreciate that. They were telling me yesterday, they're like, we come in for help at lunch, but there's so many kids. And I'm like, well, there's only one of me, so I'll do my best.
For sure. Yeah, that's a good one, right?
Yeah. That is. It's also interesting because a lot of the other teachers I talk to, it's always some sort of time thing. So it's like travel or flying or teleportation or something. So it's kind of a interesting theme with teachers that they're all kind of the same, like productivity doubling or something along those lines. So that's interesting. So the last question I'll ask you is, so my high school, QI Roberts, has kind of 3 character traits that is our, we say it every day, quality, integrity, and respect. And so I always like to ask people, which one do you think is the most important and why?
Okay, so looking at those 3, quality, integrity, and respect, I would go with integrity. I think that just being honest and being a good character is probably the most important of those. And it kind of encompasses the others. Like if you're a person of high integrity, you're wanting to put out that quality work. You're wanting to respect other people. So my vote would be for integrity.
Awesome.
Do you have data on that? I'm curious. Like, what is the most that people have said?
Honestly, integrity tends to be the highest, either integrity or respect, for kind of the same reason that, people feel like quality or integrity gets rolled into respect or respect gets rolled into integrity as well. So awesome. So you kind of already talked about where you teach. Is there anything else you want to share about where you teach, what subject you teach or taught before you have this awesome opportunity?
So I currently teach middle school math at Challenger K8. It is in Hernando County. And I've taught 5th grade math and science. I've taught 6th grade math, 7th grade math, 8th grade algebra. So yeah, that's a subject that I love math, which I enjoyed coming to your classroom today. That was awesome to see calculus. I appreciated that you didn't throw any of those problems my way.
That's awesome. And you're not a complete stranger to this area because you started in Clay County, right?
Yes, I did. I went, so I was born and raised in Hillsborough County, but then moved out of state. When I came back, I started my Florida teaching career in Clay County.
So what did it mean to you to not only be selected as a district teacher of the year and be part of the 74,
right.
To be a state finalist and then to win? I'll never forget conversation that you and I had late one night down in Orlando, and I was just like, so what do you think? And you're just like, no, I called my principal after the interviews and was like, I'll be there next year.
No, for sure. Being named county, like even that is such a, oh my goodness, humbling, how did this happen kind of thing. And I think that as teachers, like, you are at your school and you are around so many phenomenal educators. Teachers truly are like just it's a hardworking profession. We do it because of the passion that we have for the kids. And so to be selected out of a group that you see them every day, like working these long hours and the creativity that they have in their classrooms. So to be selected from that, like at the county level and then finalist and then, as the state winner it's wild. It really is to be able to represent that group, but what an amazing group to be able to represent, right?
Absolutely. We're happy to have you as our representative for sure. So talking about that creativity and that hard work, like for you, what was the most creative or maybe unconventional lesson you taught and how did it go over with your students?
Okay, so I love doing all sorts of different games. I tap into their competitive nature just to increase that engagement in the classroom. So probability is always a fun topic to get to teach. And then I used Jimmy Fallon has where they crack eggs on their forehead just to you're trying to find the raw egg. That's the point of the game. And so we did it last year when we were doing probability. And so out of the eggs, I had all of them were boiled, but 2 were raw. And so we took turns coming up and cracking it on our forehead to try to find where the raw ones are. And then each time we were calculating, okay, so if somebody found a hard-boiled one, how did that change the probability of you finding the raw one? Well, if someone found a raw one, how did that change the probability? So that was that was a fun day for sure.
That's awesome. Like the real life Monty Hall problem. It's like, do you stay with your door or do you change? Like, do you stay with the egg you picked, or do you want to trade for a different one?
No, and the kids were funny. I think a lot of them got disappointed when they
when they didn't get it.
Yeah, when they had the hard-boiled one, it was funny.
That's awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit and kind of talk about building thinking classrooms and kind of math instruction in general. So you and I didn't have a lot of time to talk when we were down in Orlando because you were being like every 2 seconds, I feel like somebody was pulling the 5 of you for a photo. Like the sheer number of photos that were taken of the 5 of you that week were incredible. I remember talking with Clay, like he'd finally sat down to eat and I was trying to talk to him and he was like, oh, well, I guess I'll go. He was like, I think I've had more pictures taken of me this week than I did at my own wedding.
He was not lying. They certainly did take a lot of pictures of us.
But so how did you first hear about building thinking classrooms?
So when I was in Clay County, I was teaching 5th grade math and science and then 6th grade math, but both of those were at the elementary school. And so at the elementary level, my math class period was 90 minutes long. When I was moving to Hernando, I was hired to teach middle school math, so from 6th to 8th. My time period for my class was shortened to 60 minutes. So at the elementary level, I had been doing small group instruction, which meant I could monitor my students every single day. Like I knew what their misconceptions were. I could stop them immediately because they were working it out every day in front of me. I didn't know how I could then transfer that to a 60-minute block. Like I tried. I kept working with the numbers, like how can I continue to do small groups at the middle school level? And when I couldn't find a way to do that, I was looking just at all of the blogs that I follow, and Building Thinking Classrooms was like on so many. And I was like, okay, if all of these people are saying this is an amazing thing, like I've got to get this book and read it. So I did. And then immediately just when I went into this new room, I set it up with the vertical whiteboards around the room. And it has been the most amazing thing to be able to teach from because it was exactly what I needed just to be able to monitor student progress every single day. Like I know exactly where they are every single day. So. Yeah. That's
awesome. So what did you think reading through the book? Because I know like what my experience was reading through it, where it was really, for me, it was truly that light bulb moment of like, oh, this is everything I'm having problems with. This could fix everything.
Yes, especially the vertical. Like, I don't know why. That's not something that I had thought of before, but just for students to put their work on the board vertically so that not only can I see it, so I'm not having to go over from group to group walking around the room. I can stand and watch and look around the room to see which groups are getting it, which groups aren't. And then the same thing, like that information passes so quickly between the groups whenever they're trying to help each other to get to the right answer. So yeah, the vertical was a complete game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. So Building Thinking Classrooms, has the 14 strategies in the original book, and then there's some slight tweaks to those that are in his newest book, which was really hoping that the high school book would be out soon, but I don't think that's coming out soon enough.
Right.
For those of us that are really looking forward to it.
K-5 only.
But for the listeners out there that are interested in Building Thinking Classrooms, even if you're not K-5, the strategies in the book can be adjusted easily to the upper level content. And the first section of the book is updates to the research. Mm-hmm. So if you're into Building Thinking Classrooms, definitely recommend checking out the new book. But kind of what of those 14 strategies did you implement in your classroom?
So immediately, thinking tasks when the kids walk in the room, like just getting their attention the second that they come in. I know we live in I'm going to call it a YouTube world where the kids, when they are starting to watch a video, if that video does not grab their attention in the first few seconds, they've gone on to the next one. It's the same way in the classroom. If you don't get their attention the moment they walk in the room, it's hard then to grab them back into that. So as soon as my kids come in the room, there's a thinking task on the board for them to do. And that's while I'm taking attendance, they're talking about that. And it's always something that is more engaging, not necessarily math. Sometimes it's math. Sometimes it's riddles. Sometimes it's rebus puzzles. If you don't know what a rebus puzzle is, look that up. Those are the students like those. They're trying to guess the phrase from like a pictorial. And so anyhow, so that was one that just grabbing their attention the second they come in, turning their brains on, making them think. I know used to do like a lot of do nows, like the kids would come in and it was, okay, do this now, or we'd review the homework.
Right, yeah.
And so a lot of that is just the students just regurgitating back to me the things that they have learned rather than actually doing the thinking on their own. So as soon as they come in, turning their thinking on, they immediately start thinking, and then it just continues as the class period goes on.
Yeah, that was definitely a big thing for me, both reading the book and then seeing it in my own classrooms, just how important that student synthesis of the information is. Like you know it intuitively, as a teacher, but I think sometimes as a math teacher, it's like, oh, that's what the homework's for. That's what that, but it's totally different to watch them do it in the classroom and have that immediate, like, oh, I don't know what this is. Let me think about this, and guiding them through that. And you had the opportunity to see a little bit of a sample of that today in my classroom. So I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here, but I'm curious what you thought about it, seeing it in kind of a different context from what you're used to in terms of an upper level math context.
Yeah, so seeing it at the calculus level, because that was what I got to witness today, it was neat to see the students just working on the higher level math, but then there was one girl who she had her answer. She knew her thought process, but she wanted to solidify it and really make sure that she was correct. So she's looking at her group and she's asking them, and she's stating what she believes to be true. She gets confirmation from them, but she's still hesitant about it. So she turns to the group next to her and she's asking them, and then they give her that as well, that she was on the right track. But no, it's neat for the students to be that engaged with their learning. It's not them sitting in rows in our classrooms where we are giving them this information. Here are your notes. Okay, now you practice this independently on your own. These students are working through these problems on their own, and they're just so excited and engaged in being able to do it together. So I loved your kids today, like working on these higher level math questions. I was thankful none of them asked me to help them with this.
They're definitely used to the visitors to class not knowing anything about what they're doing. And that's no insult to any of the visitors in my classroom ever.
Don't tell them I teach math, Ian. Don't tell them I teach math.
It's when the people they're used to walking through were like middle school history teachers.
Oh, right.
They know not to expect too much help in calculus. So I'm curious, because I know what mine was, and I'm always interested people who have implemented BTC about kind of what your largest struggle was with your students about getting them to kind of adopt to this really, for most of them, foreign way of learning.
So honestly, the vertical boards is one that initially when the classes come in, that's foreign to them. They are used to sitting in a chair and working out their math problems at their desks. So getting up and going to boards and working them out, and then collaborating and being able to, having to articulate their thought process, that's new to them. A lot of them they can sit in a seat and they can just blend in. I know last year I had a kid tell me within the first 2 weeks of my class, he's like, I really don't like this class because I'm used to sleeping in math and I can't sleep in here because I've got to stand at this board. But just having to articulate their thoughts whenever they're solving something. I can't tell you how many times I will ask, okay, so how did you get that answer? And they will say, math. And they think it's hysterical. Every time they're like, math. So it's neat for them to just begin to start to articulate the things that they are thinking and being able to use that math vocabulary. So.
Yeah. That's interesting to hear, because that's something that I am trying to work through with my students this year, because that's what I'm noticing is a weakness for my students, is that, if I kind of walk them through what to do, they're like, oh yeah, I remember those steps. I know what to do. But when they read it, that mathematical fluency of the vocabulary to know like, oh, that's what that word means, is something that my students this year are struggling with. So it's good to know it works.
So I was in a first grade classroom yesterday in Clay County, and they had the vertical boards. I was so excited to see that they were implementing VTC. It was their first year doing it. But the vocabulary, like these first graders were using like the word equation. I'm going, what? Oh my God, this is amazing. Like, how helpful is that going to be to us when, as the kids move up?
Right, absolutely. So that actually, we're kind of skipping around a little bit, but as someone who, I know you're just kind of starting your tour of classrooms and stuff across the state, but this research started in math classrooms and is primarily math focused in terms of what the research is written.
Right.
But do you think, you said you've seen it work in an elementary school classroom, but do you think is this something that should work in other subjects, and people from other subjects should think about, maybe picking up the book, even if they are a history teacher or a science teacher or something?
No, absolutely. So at my school, I know we do a lot of professional development where the teachers get to, on their planning period, go walk other teachers' classrooms. And so there was a science teacher last year that came in my room, and she started implementing vertical boards in her rooms immediately. I know that we have some other English teachers who they're doing the same thing. They have started implementing vertical boards, and it's just that transfer of information. So many times the kids are sitting at their seats and they're working, and then all of a sudden the teacher gives the group a chance to share out. But if those groups are standing and all of their information is vertical, it just changes the game, right? So like in science, I can see groups doing science experiments and then going to their vertical board to put their data up there and their findings. And then it's easy just for all of the groups to look around to see, okay, well, are the other groups on the same page as us? Are we all getting the same thing? Are we all finding the same thing? So yeah, it lends itself great to science or any diagrams that you're having to draw. English as well, as you're maybe doing your pre-writing and you're just putting your ideas up on the board. Same thing. Anytime you're having those share outs in class, it makes it so much easier if the kids can actually see it, Yeah,
absolutely. Putting things on big, my wife calls it big paper. Putting your thoughts big and vertical it's amazing how much that tweak alone changes everything. Because I know this year I'm trying to implement some of the deeper strategies from building thinking classrooms in terms of grade tracking and just kind of dipping my toes into that. But 2 years ago when I started, it was just like, let's do the cards, let's stand up, let's do that. And just that one tweak alone is huge.
Yeah. If you go on Facebook, I'm sure you follow a lot of the Building Thinking Classrooms pages.
Yeah.
And the book was written for math, so many pages out there for math. But they've actually started to branch out, and there's a lot of pages that are geared towards other content areas. So if Building Thinking Classrooms is something that you're interested in, or you're hearing that, wow, this is a game changer in the classroom, what is this all about? Go follow like the social studies teachers or the science teachers or the English teachers and see how they're implementing that, because those pages are already out there.
Yeah, absolutely. The Facebook is an interesting place, but if you find the right places, there's lots of good information there.
That's true.
The teacher pages tend to be pretty safe places to go. Awesome. Let's see. So we kind of hit on all of the stuff I wanted to. So to close out as Teacher of the Year, right? You get to travel and interact with students and teachers and everybody from across the state. I know you're kind of just starting, so maybe there isn't something that you've learned yet that you're excited about, but is there something that you're like, what are you most excited about during this next year as you get to represent all of the teachers in Florida?
So as teachers, we were talking about it today, how we don't get out of our four walls that often. Like there are teachers in our school who we've never been in their classrooms just to go watch them teach and learn ideas from them. So I love that my school started a few years ago doing the during our planning period where we got to walk and, see what other teachers were doing. So this year, that's what I'm getting to do is just get to tour, and I'm seeing amazing things in all of the schools and some amazing instruction and just getting some awesome ideas. So that truly is what has been exciting. And since I am middle school, even though I'm at a K-8, I'm middle school, it has been interesting to go into the different levels. Like yesterday, I was in a first grade classroom, and just to see the excitement of these little guys, and then today the seniors in your calculus class. It's interesting to get like that full spectrum of education, and so that's what I'm most excited about. Just being able to just see the amazing things that are going on out there in Florida education, because there are so many awesome things. So I'm blessed that I get to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited, that you get to do that, and that in a small part, this podcast gets to do that, of celebrating and getting the positive things out there about education, and kind of drowning out all of the few negative stories that always kind of take over people's thought process. So that was all of my questions. Is there anything you want to shout out or plug or anything here at the end of our podcast together?
Oh, yes, I do, actually. Go like and subscribe. So my journey this year, I'm actually, I will be documented on Facebook, Instagram, and on X, or as the people our age know it as Twitter. So please go follow.
The platform formerly known as Twitter.
The platform formerly known as Twitter. I like that. I'm stealing that, by the way. But 2025 Florida Teacher of the Year, Jaime Suarez. Go follow me on those, and you can watch as I'm traveling the state and just looking at all the amazing things going on in education.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, coming out, visiting me and my high school today. And we wish you all safe travels as you go about the rest of the state over the next year.
Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
Listeners, if you like the podcast, subscribe on your favorite podcast player of choice so you don't miss out on future episodes, and please share with your friends. Until next time, excellence in all endeavors.